The deep cold of a bedroom in the morning before anyone turned the heat up. The weight of about 4 blankets pinning you to the mattress. The particular squeak of the one floorboard you learned to step over on your way out. If you grew up in America between the 50s and the 80s, your bedroom was full of things you will never find in a kid's room today. Today, you and I are going to walk through that room together, slowly, one corner at a time, until we've found every last one of them. But stay with me right to the end, because in the last corner, we're going to open the toy box and find the toys that were so wonderfully, completely dangerous that most of them are flat out illegal to sell now. I'll show you when we get there, so settle in. Picture the bedroom you grew up in, the real one. The wallpaper, the light through the curtains in the morning, the exact spot on the ceiling you stared at every night. Ready? Let's walk in. We start at the most important thing in the room, the bed, and what was on it. Not a duvet, not a comforter you shook into a cover. The chenille bedspread, that heavy, nubbly cotton spread with the raised pattern you could read with your fingertips in the dark. Be honest, you traced those little raised tufts 1,000 times when you were supposed to be asleep, and if you fell asleep on top of it, you woke up with the pattern pressed deep into your cheek. And underneath, the sheets weren't fitted with neat elastic corners. They were flat sheets your mother folded into crisp hospital corners, tucked so tight you had to fight your way in like an envelope. And the blankets, layers of them, heavy wool ones that scratched, because the house got genuinely cold at night. Nobody ran the heat while they slept. You slept under real weight in a cold room, and you stuck one foot out the side to regulate the whole system. And there was a whole geography to that bed, the cold side and the warm side. The exact pocket of warmth you'd hollowed out that you did not dare leave on a winter morning. The dreaded moment your mother stripped the blankets off to make you get up, and the cold hit you like a bucket of water. In the morning, you were expected to make it, pull that heavy spread up tight and neat, which for a kid meant lumpy and crooked with the pillow plopped on top. And if you shared the room with a brother or sister, there was an invisible border down the middle of that room that was defended like a national one. Look up at the head of the bed, the alarm clock that ticked, the wind-up clock with the 2 bells on top and the hammer that struck between them, sitting on the nightstand, ticking loud enough to fill the whole quiet room. You could hear it in the dark. That steady mechanical tick was the sound of the room at night, and you stopped noticing it until the one night it wound down and stopped, and the silence woke you. When the alarm went off, it didn't gently chime. It exploded, a full metallic clatter that launched you out of a dead sleep and that you slapped at desperately to make it stop. And here's the thing that's truly gone. That clock had exactly one job. It did not also play the radio, show you the news, light up the room, or know your name. It told the time and it woke you up, and when it wore out after 15 years, it simply stopped, and you got another one. You wound it every night. A small ritual, the little key turning against the spring's resistance, and if you forgot, you overslept and missed the bus, and that was a lesson you learned exactly once. The glow-in-the-dark hands and numbers, charged up by the lamp, hung there green and faint in the black room, and you'd hold your wristwatch up to the bulb to make it glow too, just to watch it fade. Now turn to the window, and the morning light coming through it. The roller shade, not blinds, not curtains alone, the stiff paper or vinyl roller shade that you pulled down by a little ring on a string. And every single one of them, in every house in America, had the same fatal flaw. If you pulled it down and let go by accident, it would snap up all the way to the top with a violent flap, 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 and roll itself into a useless tube that you then had to stand on the bed and fix. Admit it, you let one go on purpose at least once, just for the chaos of it. In the morning, the sun came through that thin shade and turned the whole room a kind of warm amber, and you could see the dust drifting in the beam of light. And the curtains over them were often something your mother sewed herself in a fabric that matched the bedspread, because matching was the whole point of a 70s bedroom. And on a sick day home from school, that shade ruled the whole experience. Pulled down, the room went dim and golden, and you lay there in the half-light with a cool washcloth and a glass of flat ginger ale, the muffled sounds of the house going on without you, the television wheeled in on its cart if you were really lucky. A sick day in that amber light, blanket-wrapped and excused from everything, is one of the strangely cozy memories of an American childhood. Look at the wall above the dresser, the things that watched you sleep. First, the framed prayer or blessing. In so many American bedrooms, there was a little framed print on the wall, a guardian angel guiding two children across a bridge, or a few embroidered words that hung there to watch over the room at night, and beside it, taped or thumbtacked right to the wallpaper, the posters, the band you loved, torn carefully from the center of a magazine, the car you'd never own, the athlete in mid-jump. There was no removable putty that didn't damage the paint. You used tape or actual tacks, and every kid's wall was a little scarred from it, a record of every phase you'd outgrown and torn down. And the wallpaper itself. Not paint, paper, with a busy repeating pattern of flowers or little sailboats or footballs that someone had hung by hand with a brush and a bucket of paste, and that you lay in bed memorizing until you could find the exact spot where the pattern didn't quite line up. There was always a seam that had started to peel at the corner that you picked at a little more every night until your mother caught the damage, and in the dark, that busy pattern played tricks. The flowers became faces, the shapes rearranged themselves into something watching you until you pulled the blanket up and refused to look at that one corner near the closet. Now to the dresser top, the small machine that was your window to the world, the Transistor Radio. Small enough to hold in one hand, with a single earphone and a little dial and a wrist strap. This was your first taste of a private life. Late at night, you'd tuck it under your pillow, turn the volume down to almost nothing, and listen. A ball game from a city you'd never seen. A late-night DJ, a far-off station drifting in and out as the signal fought across the dark. Your parents thought you were asleep. You were traveling the whole country through a 1-inch speaker. And later, if you were lucky, the dresser held the record player of your very own, the little portable one in a case with the lid that you played your first records on, stacked 5 high on the fat spindle so they'd drop down one after another. Open the closet door and mind what's hanging there. The clothes weren't in plastic bins or cubbies. They hung on wire hangers from the dry cleaner, the kind that bent if you looked at them wrong and that multiplied mysteriously in the back of every closet in America. And on the shelf above, the things stored out of reach, the board games in their soft, split-cornered boxes, stacked so that pulling out the bottom one risked the whole tower, the shoebox of secret treasures. And, way in the back, the metal cap gun in its holster, and the things a kid hid where parents wouldn't look. The closet was also, of course, the most terrifying place in the house after dark. The door that had to be fully closed before you could sleep, because everyone knew what waited in a closet door left even an inch ajar. And the closet floor was an archaeology of childhood, the single shoes whose partner had vanished, the games with half the pieces gone, the clothes you'd outgrown that your mother swore another kid would grow into, the Halloween costume from 2 years ago. If you had an older sibling, half your wardrobe arrived from that closet as hand-me-downs, and you knew every shirt's whole history, who'd worn it first and what they'd spilled on it. Nothing was thrown out while it still technically fit somebody. Look down beside the bed for the light that got you through the night. The nightlight plugged into the wall low to the floor, a little glowing seashell or a bulb behind a cartoon character, throwing just enough light to keep the shadows honest. And under the bed, or right beside it, the flashlight. Be honest, this was contraband. The second the lights went out and the door closed, out it came, and you read comic books under the covers in a little tent of blanket, the beam getting weaker and yellower as the batteries died, until you heard footsteps in the hall and froze. Light off, heart pounding, pretending to be asleep. That flashlight under the covers was the first thing you ever did that was truly yours. A small, secret rebellion that every kid in America committed, alone, in the dark, and thought they'd invented. And the dark itself was different then. No glowing screens, no charging lights, no devices breathing little LEDs all night. When the lamp went off, the room went genuinely black, except for that one nightlight throwing the shadow of the dresser up huge against the wall. You lay there and listened to the house settle, the furnace kicking on, a car passing and sweeping its headlights across the ceiling, the floorboards ticking as the place cooled. You learned every sound that house made at night. and you developed the strict, unbreakable logic of childhood. One foot could not hang off the edge of the bed, and a blanket pulled to the chin was, somehow, complete protection from everything. Now to the corner of the room, the desk where the homework happened. The little desk, and on it, the things that did one job each: a jar of pencils, a metal pencil sharpener clamped to the edge, and a globe. The globe that lit up from inside, that you spun and stopped with one finger to see where you'd travel. The countries on it had names and borders that don't even exist anymore. Spin it now, and it's a little time capsule of a world that has since redrawn itself entirely. You found your own town on it eventually, just a dot, and felt the strange thrill of how small it was. And the desk lamp with the metal shade that got hot enough to burn your fingers that you learned about exactly once. This was where homework got done the slow way, by hand, copied out of the encyclopedia, with a real pencil you sharpened with that clamp-on grinder until it was a stub. No spell check, no looking it up in 3 seconds. If you didn't know a word, you hauled out the dictionary. If you got something wrong, you erased it so hard you tore the paper. The whole thing took an entire evening, and the lamp burned a little circle of warmth onto the desk while you worked. And taped to that desk or the wall above it, the bumper stickers, the ticket stubs, the school pennant, the felt triangle in your school's colors tacked up at an angle that every American kid's room seemed to have, and that nobody under 30 has ever owned. Almost there. Look at the shelf running along the wall. The collections. Because every kid was collecting something, displayed in a careful row that you alone understood. The model cars and planes, built with glue that you definitely huffed a little of, painted badly, missing a few decals. The rock collection in an egg carton, each lump labeled in pencil. The little glass animals, the model horses. The trophy, usually just for participation, but it was gold, and it was yours, and it stood front and center. This shelf was the kid's whole identity, on display, arranged and rearranged, dusted more carefully than anything else they owned. And there were the books, the matching spines of a series you saved up for one at a time. The well-worn ones read so many times the covers were soft as cloth. The mystery series where you knew every character, the joke books you'd memorized, the one slightly scandalous title you kept turned spine in. You knew exactly which book was where, and you'd reread your favorites a dozen times rather than face a night with nothing to read, because there was no other screen to turn to. The book was the entertainment, and you wrung every last drop out of each one. And now, the toy box I promised you at the very start. There it was, at the foot of the bed, a wooden chest or a big metal tin with the lid that closed hard enough to catch small fingers. Lift it open with me, and look at what we were allowed to play with. A metal toy with sharp stamped edges and a few rust spots. A chemistry set with chemicals that could genuinely burn a hole in the carpet, and in one famous case, came with actual radioactive material for children. The lawn darts, heavy steel-tipped spears you threw up into the sky and, in theory, near a target that have since been banned outright after they did exactly what you'd expect. The wood-burning kit, a metal rod you heated to hundreds of degrees and handed to an 8-year-old. The clackers, 2 hard acrylic balls on a string that you swung until they shattered into shrapnel. And there was more. The toy oven that cooked with a real, genuinely hot light bulb that every kid burned a finger on. The BB gun you got for your birthday and were told by your own father not to shoot your eye out, and then sent outside with a loan. The bicycle with no helmet, the metal slide that hit 150 degrees, the merry-go-round somebody always spun too fast. The toys came with sharp metal, small parts, real heat, and 0 warning labels because the warning was understood. Be careful or learn the hard way. And here's the truth of that toy box. These toys assumed something about us that toys no longer assume. That you would get hurt, learn from it, and be fine. A little danger was simply built in, the way scraped knees were built into riding a bike. We melted things, launched things, broke things, and occasionally went to the emergency room. And we did it unsupervised in our own rooms, and we wouldn't trade a minute of it. That whole idea that a child could be trusted with something a little bit dangerous is the thing that's really gone. The toys were just where you could see it. So that's our room. The shades pulled down, the nightlight's on, and it's quiet again. Now I want to hear about yours. Which one stopped you cold? The chenille bedspread? The flashlight under the covers? The lawn darts that somehow we all survived? Tell me down in the comments. And tell me the one thing your bedroom had that we didn't name, because I read every single one, and I'm building the next room from your memories. If this brought even a little of it back, subscribe and come sit with us again. Next time, we're walking the aisles of a store that doesn't exist anymore, the great American 5 and dime, where everything cost a nickel and the smell of the lunch counter hit you at the door. We'll leave the light on for you.